David has been arrested and the situation is about to get wild. Now, I want to watch this because I don't really know too much about this situation, but apparently on Monday, some shit's supposed to go down. But let's see. This is actually a very sad story. We briefly talked about this the last time we was on stream, and this is a sad story, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I hate this for the outcome, but also people want to see justice get served. I guess we're going to find out details in the upcoming week on whether or not he actually really had something to do with this, but we'll see.
Looks like David has officially been arrested for the murder of Celeste Rivas. This is something everybody has pretty much been waiting on for the last 7 or 8 months since the news broke that she was found in the front trunk of his Tesla back in September of 2025. And since then, we've had pretty much no updates on the case. There had been really no arrest made. Nobody had been being put on trial for this case. But it looks like today that is all going to change because, like I said, news has come out that David has officially been arrested, but he has not been indicted. Okay, so we got his arrest record right here. He's 21. It says that he was in custody yesterday, April 16th at 10:44 p.m. and the arrest was made by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Okay, so a few things that I want to go over. One is this guy, Steve Fischer. Steve Fischer is a private investigator who has been looking into this entire matter. He was hired by the owner of the Hollywood Hills mansion that David was living in when Celeste's body was found just a few blocks away from that mansion. He claimed that he didn't even know David was living there. He hired this guy, Steve Fischer, and Steve has been credited with turning up a ton of evidence that could explain what happened to Celeste. So Steve went over on Twitter yesterday and he posted this right here up with some screenshots. And this post says, it's been 7+ months since Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found dismembered in the front trunk of David's Tesla. And still there are no charges, no press conference, no answers. The LAPD's own press release told the public that there may be no criminal culpability beyond concealment of a body. That was a lie. Concealment is a misdemeanor in California. Dismemberment is mutilation of a corpse, which is a felony in California. The DA's own legal filings confirm her body was cut apart and placed in separate bags.
That is crazy, bruh. My God.
They also sealed the medical examiner's report, claiming it was only to ensure detectives received it first, yet months later, it still remains sealed. So why the silence? Why is there no transparency? Why is there no charges? What are they hiring, right? So he posted this yesterday, demanding that, pretty much something happened. And then shortly after he sent this tweet out is when it was announced that David was in fact arrested, right? We got this press release right here. And this press release came out back in 2025. This is one of the things he had attached to that tweet he sent, where they said, and you can see it highlighted right here, that it remained unclear whether there was any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body. He also had this screenshot attached that says, a person who willfully mutilates without the authority of the law is guilty of a felony. Okay, about 8 hours later, he sent this tweet out that said, finally, David has been arrested for the murder of Celeste Hernandez. It appears that he was not indicted, but rather arrested by the LAPD, and charges will be sent to the DA by Monday.
That is kind of strange that it took this long for anybody to move on anything. And I know people want to say it's due to active investigation and it was looking into this and looking into that. But something is very strange given the fact that nothing was really done about this shit for a very long time. Just think about how much time this nigga had to basically just do whatever. Like if somebody does some shit like this and are involved in some way of some form, this is a lot of time for them to cover their tracks, or a lot of time for them to figure out ways to separate themselves from the crime. It's something super off about this, and I don't know, but it ain't looking right.
Okay, we also seen the Los Angeles Police Department Public Information Office sending out these tweets. They said detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department Robbery Homicide Division have arrested David Burke, a 21-year-old resident of Los Angeles, for the murder of Celeste. Burke is being held without bail, and they also confirmed that the case will be presented to the DA on Monday for filing consideration, right? Steve went on to kind of tweet about this and kind of explain what all that means. And it says, David was arrested by complaint, not indictment, and the case will be submitted to the DA's office on Monday. That likely means either the grand jury did not return an indictment or the DA chose not to seek one. An arrest by complaint means that there will be a preliminary hearing to determine probable cause. This is a public hearing where evidence is presented and witnesses are questioned under oath, something that is bypassed with a grand jury indictment. It will be important to see whether this reflects a difference in strategy or a difference of opinion regarding the strength of the case between the LAPD or the DA, or if there is another reason for proceeding this way. Immunity agreements, whether formal or informal, remain in effect even though there was no indictment. Okay, so long story short, if this was presented to the grand jury and the grand jury had passed down an indictment, that could have been done without evidence being presented publicly and witnesses being questioned under oath publicly. But the grand jury didn't return an indictment. So the LAPD, I'm assuming, is going to have this public hearing. Witnesses are going to be questioned. Evidence is going to be presented, something that normally doesn't need to happen in a grand jury setting when they're trying to get an indictment. With that said, the question becomes, what new evidence does the LAPD have that has pretty much made them go and arrest David now at this point in time that they didn't have, 5, 6, 7 months ago when all of this first went down? To me, it says that there is some kind of new evidence that has come out that has led the LAPD to believe that they can pursue a conviction. Okay,
I was thinking that too. That they probably got some new information, but still, that's a lot of time passing between this, and it's sad to see this kind of shit go down, and who knows what actually happened. My guess is that there's probably gonna be a story about some foul play somewhere, maybe drugs or something. That's what my guess is. There's gonna be something with foul play, and then somebody just basically trying to cover their tracks, whoever the fuck it may be. And cover their tracks meaning just basically, finding a way to get rid of the body. And also, you gotta keep in mind the other part of this, right? Let's not forget, she was 14? So think about it. At 14, and this guy is 21. I know before the initial thoughts people were trying to say, whether she was pregnant at the time or whatever, who knows? But that's motive right there. Because if it turns out that you're found out that you was messing with this girl at that age and you 21, you cooked. So whatever happened in the midst of whatever the fuck they was doing, somebody panicked, possibly, and felt like they had to get rid of the body. Like, she's 14. That's sad. Every time I see that photo, it's like it's sad to look at, because you wonder, like, what the hell could she have possibly done? What the hell could she have actually gone through in those moments? And when you think about, like, kids being in helpless situations, like, that shit not a good feeling, whether they your kids or not. Whenever I see like a kid in a helpless situation, like, that shit make me feel some type of way, especially as a dad. Like, you don't want to see shit like this for no damn parent, and even especially for the child. And this child was out here hanging out with a fucking 21-year-old. That shit right there is like, come on, dog. I hate this story, but obviously this shit is gonna be shit that's gonna develop from here.
We don't know what that evidence is. We don't know what has caused them to go and arrest him for probable cause, but that's kind of what it indicates, at least to me when I'm looking at it. Now, footage did come out of David actually being arrested. This came out via TMZ, and you can see that they sent K9s in the house, and then there's some footage where you can see him being arrested outside. All right, I'll play that for y'all real quick right now.
It's gonna obscure my view from the gate. If you try to run or you try to resist, you will get hit with my feet, so it's gonna hurt. I got you. If you try to run, we have K9 on premises, you will get bit. I got you. Alright, so the gate is locked. You wanna open the gate? Sir? Open the gate.
Bruh. TMZ is like, I don't... Like, they literally got a system. I don't know where they recording this from. The fact that they're recording it like this through a damn window with a damn screen on it is just crazy to me. These at TMZ get anything, bruh. Any fucking thing. My gosh. Damn. All right, so he's getting arrested, but I think it's also important to point out in this situation, I think he did this alone. If he did this, right, because we don't know exactly what happened, if he did this or had a part to play in this, there are people involved. And I think that's important to note and important for us to look at, because everybody who was involved in this shit needs to pay. Everybody, because again, that was a damn child, bruh. 14, you're a damn child. All the people that knew she was 14 and was just willingly just sitting around having a good time watching these two like hang out together is complicit in that shit, bro. You know, allowing this situation to just even be a thing. Like, some of this shit is in your hands too. Cause at 21, bro, what business you got hanging out with a 14-year-old? Where? What business do you have? So all the people that was around them that saw this, y'all got a part to play in this too. Man, seeing I said, I think he did this one by himself. I don't know. I think he had help, bro. This is pretty dark, man. Like, they dismembered her body and put them in separate bags. That's dark. You know what I'm saying? That's super dark.
David's lawyers have actually issued a statement on his arrest saying that they will, quote unquote, vigorously defend his innocence. And they said, let us be clear, the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. There has been no indictment returned by any grand jury in this case, and no criminal complaint has been filed. David has only been detained under suspicion. We will vigorously defend David's innocence.
I mean, that's all good, but you a lawyer, you supposed to say that shit, man. You know, y'all supposed to talk like this. You know, they're gonna claim his innocence, but how did she end up in your car, dog? You know, and it's not somebody that you don't have a relationship with. You're in photos with her, and there's some questionable lyrics to some of your songs, bruh. So, you know, the lawyers could come out and say this all they want, but y'all getting paid. Y'all got a reason to do this shit, man. I wanted to go to law school. Sometimes I look at this profession and I just ask myself, like, how would I feel in a situation like this? You know, where you got to defend somebody who is being accused of something this dark. And that was ultimately like where it kind of pushed me away from it. And I know that you don't have to be like a criminal lawyer. You don't have still, like, even for situations where you have to be dishonest, you know, in defense of your client for situations, for things that hurt other people. You know what I mean? It's crazy. There's a lot of people that do it. I guess they have a switch they got to turn off.
They didn't say that he didn't chop her body up and put it in the Tesla. They said that the evidence will show that he didn't murder her and that he wasn't the cause of her death. Okay, so if he wasn't a murderer or the cause of her death, then who or what was is the main question that comes from that right there. And if he didn't cause her death, then why the hell did he chop her body up? You understand? Now, David...
Again, evidence in the case will show that David did not murder and wasn't the cause of her death. Now, remember what I told y'all. It could have been that something happened, anything, and she died, or somebody contributed to that, whatever the case. I don't put it past him getting somebody else to clean the shit up. So when you do that, now you can say something like this. He didn't do it, and he wasn't the cause of it. But that doesn't mean you don't know shit. At the end of the day, it was in your Tesla. So you got to explain that shit.
Innocent until proven guilty, despite what everybody feels. Okay. And I feel like he's guilty, but he's innocent until proven.
See, Tay on kind of the same thinking I'm at. I bet you someone was supposed to do away with her remains, but didn't do it. I wonder if they wanted some money.
Guilty. And obviously, this is what his attorneys are supposed to do. But it does raise the question of, if he didn't murder her, who did? And if he wasn't the cause of death, what was? And then why was she put in plastic bags and put in the front trunk of the Tesla and left on the side of the street? Keep in mind, weeks and weeks and weeks after she actually died, if you remember, they said that she had died weeks prior to her being discovered, which means at some point she was put in these bags. She had to have been like refrigerated and then moved into the trunk of the Tesla. You know, it's a wild situation. Now, we haven't really seen any of the evidence that the DA or that the LAPD has, because a lot of it has been sealed. But that evidence will start to come out now that he has actually been arrested under suspicion. They're going to have to unseal a lot of that evidence in order to present it to see if they are going to prosecute him. Okay. And an important part of what Steve said was that immunity agreements, whether formal or informal, remain in effect, even though there is no indictment. So people have basically been pre-given immunity, right? We heard that there are going to be witnesses questioned in a public hearing about what they know. We got Steve saying that immunity agreements are going to remain in effect, even though no nobody has technically been indicted. And we'll probably get to hear some people that were around David and involved with this. We'll get to hear what their perspective was. One of those people might be his friend that came out shortly after this news story broke last year and started trying to separate himself from David and remove himself from the situation, right? He might be questioned and interviewed. And what
Thankfully, I'm legal, fine in every way, and boy, do I got all my receipts for things. What does that mean?
these people say could be interesting, right? Look at this clip of what his friend said back when all of this first went down.
Here's what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to read you what Neil Langston just posted on his Instagram account. And I will tell you, it's quite telling, okay? And I'm curious why he posted it, why of all times right now. I'm going to try to put it into context a bit more, but this is important. This is a big development. So Neo took to Instagram with a series of posts. There was one that said, I understand due to my silence and the silence in general, it leaves a void of information that everyone wants to fill. But at the end of the day, this case isn't about me. It isn't about you. It's about getting justice for the victim and her family, and I care a lot more about that than trying to fill that void because of public opinion. Obviously wasn't doing my part at first, but now I am. I've stayed loyal to my mindset and I will continue to. I'm not publicly going to give any opinion or emotion about this case because I find it disrespectful and not my place to weigh in on it, especially as it's still ongoing. I'm not going to spam post to justify and perform my feelings and thoughts for the internet, trying to satisfy people who have already made up their minds about me. In time, the record will speak for itself, and I'm moving on with my life. There's another post where he apparently said, I think the worst part is that I've told so many people that I trust that I thought knew me as a person, my side of things, all for that to be thrown out the window as soon as I get arrested and they slap that bleep's name next to mine. I'm assuming he's referring to David here. And for the record, the thing I was arrested for, I wasn't even charged. They never filed it. My warrant was retracted because there is more to the story than what's on the news.
I'm not gonna lie, he's saying a whole lot of nothing, but what he's saying right now that is telling is him trying to separate himself from the David guy. It's kind of giving me the vibes of, you know, when the orange man says, you know, that Epstein was a creep. He was a terrible guy. He's a creep. As if he wasn't hanging with that. Like, why now that some shit go down, why now is he a creep? This is you trying to distance yourself from it. Y'all was hanging out. That last photo showed y'all taking a damn selfie together. Y'all both laying on this couch, whatever the fuck y'all was doing, smiling. So now when some shit go down, now he a creep. I hate when people do that shit. You know who you was chilling with.
Then there's this post. Thankfully, I'm legally fine in every way. And boy, do I got all my receipts for things. Ha 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 ha. This raises a lot of questions about why he posted this. Obviously, he can't and will not say anything to jeopardize his legal rights, right? Probably instructed by the government to not say anything either if he had spoken in front of the grand jury. Probably his attorney said, don't say anything. I don't even know if his attorney was consulted with this post, but it seems like he's trying to correct whatever misconception or misunderstanding the public has on him or his alleged role in this, because there is a lot of talk about him.
Yeah, so we'll probably get to hear what the people that were around him think as the weeks move forward in this case is pushed towards a prosecution. I ain't gonna lie, man, David is fucked. Think about everything that we've seen and heard since this case first broke. And that's just the stuff we know. A lot of it's been sealed, so a lot of the information we don't know. There's no telling what the LAPD had. And like I said earlier, there's got to be something that the police have discovered right now that have led them to say, you know what, we think we have enough to make an arrest based on probable cause and try to push this through to the DA. Don't know what that evidence is going to be, but it's going to be interesting to see. Now, I actually did see Steve go live with Jesse Weber on News Nation with Jesse Weber last night. Now, this ain't been posted on like their YouTube or anything like that, but I did manage to record the conversation and kind of see what this investigator thinks about this and what Jesse Weber thinks about this and what they think this case looks like moving forward. And they kind of discuss the giant pause in activity in this case. It was a pretty interesting watch. I want to play out a little piece of it right now. Y'all check this out.
So tonight, for the big questions, I want to turn right now to missing persons private investigator Steve Fischer and LA Magazine contributor Lauren Conlon. Both have been covering the story since it began. Anybody knows you, you have been quite vocal advocating for David's arrest for quite some time. But like they said, Just an arrest, no charges yet. Isn't that confusing? Wasn't there a grand jury that was impaneled?
It's really confusing, and I'll tell you, I tweeted about this exact thing before that statement came out. I was surprised that this arrest was by complaint. It was not going to be sent to the DA's office to consider being charged. This is not an indictment of the grand jury. So either the grand jury would fail to return an indictment, or for some reason they didn't send it to the grand jury for an actual vote. So either one of those, I'll tell you, it worries me a little bit.
Explain to our audience why it worries you. First, two questions to you, Steve. Were they aware that LAPD was going to arrest him? And two, why does this worry you? You're saying maybe the case is not strong?
I don't know for sure if they were made aware. Normally in the circumstance they would be, but I don't know. Is there now a break possibly between LAPD and the DA's office on this case? It could be, because we know that there was a grand jury impaneled. We know that because the filings that the DA's office did in Texas, that was by the DA's office, so they're aware of this case. The fact that they didn't arrest him by indictment, and strategically would make sense that they go for an indictment, I guess, if they want to keep everything really private like they have done. But now it's got to go to a preliminary hearing. So I don't know if there was they couldn't come to terms, and LAPD said, listen, we're just gonna throw it out there and arrest him and see if the DA's office picks up charges or not.
Well, look, if you're right, I mean, this could have been just an investigative grand jury gathering evidence, locking in testimony. Maybe they didn't feel they could get a majority of jurors to believe that there was enough probable cause for a charge. Maybe unlikely, because, a grand jury is relatively low standard. But then, like you said, maybe you go to a preliminary hearing in front of a judge, you present the evidence.
This arrest reportedly is based on probable cause at this point. So what changed? What piece of evidence came forward now that they didn't have 7 months ago? That's what I'm asking myself.
That's fair. Steve, look, one of the reasons we don't have a lot of questions, a lot of answers, is because the medical examiner's report has been sealed. This was sealed right per the LAPD. I wonder now, if there has been an arrest, is that going to be unsealed? Because if you hear his attorney saying he's not the cause of death, what exactly was the cause of death?
So now that he's these charges are about to be sent up to the DA for consideration, now they'll probably switch their strategy a little bit. And if that's the case, they got something in there that they think points away from David, they're going to want that unsealed. And they're going to have to unseal it anyways now, because there's going to be a prelim hearing, assuming he pleads, not guilty. So it's funny. Things are going to really now, an indictment, everything would have stayed sealed. And now that's different. So we're about to, if it moves forward, we're about to see a lot, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the situation. That's the discussion that's going on. We will be getting more information as time moves forward. Everything that was once sealed and being hid from everybody, that's going to start coming out and being public. David is going to have a hard time in prison, right? Celeste was only 14 at the time she was murdered. He is a full-blown adult who was dating her and then allegedly killed her. Them guys in prison, they're not going to look fondly on that. He's not going to have a great time while he's locked up. He is definitely going to be PC'd up, and if not, then the outcome of this might be crazy. But that's what we got, man. That's the story. Y'all,
shout out to KB Goes Live, man. Listen, whatever the case may be, let's say somebody else did it. Who gives a fuck? At the end of the day, it still remains this man was 21 fucking around with a 14-year-old. That right there alone should tell you what you need to hear. Just that. So what are we talking about? 21 fucking with a kid. 21 fucking with a baby. Nobody gives a fuck about none of that other shit. We don't care if somebody else did it well, we do care if somebody else did it. You want to figure out who the fuck did this shit. But at the end of the day, it's like, bruh, we don't care. You were 21 fucking with a 14-year-old. So either way, either way. They said, so either way he was involved. Yeah, I mean, they said, and it's his car. How did someone else access his car? He knows some shit. That kid that's his friend, he knows some shit. And I'm imagining they gotta have some footage somewhere, wherever they took this car from. Go back there. Figure out if there's some footage out there. Something gotta be figured out because this shit right here is just wild. It's a very sad story. Like, you got parents out there pleading for their child to come back. Nobody wish that shit on nobody, man. Parents out there waiting for their child to come back, hoping their child come back, pleading with people. That shit is insane, man.
Niggas said it bad, but somebody gotta do it. Got my foot up on the gas, but somebody gotta do it.